This season marks a new beginning. Witness the raw power, iconic sound, and pure speed from the historic Lotus 79. Experience the competition and glory days of early 80s open-wheel action. Watch as drivers wrestle these ground effects cars into submission. Drivers will face off wheel to wheel. For some, it's a chance at redemption. For others, an opportunity to make a statement. All sharing the same goal, to be crowned champion. Tune in Thursday nights on the iRacing Esports Network to watch the premier historic open wheel series on iRacing, the Lionheart Retro Series presented by Buttkicker.
Hello from Dream Vacations. We look forward to helping you plan a cruise vacation where you can race your friends on the top deck while cruising the oceans, or you can compete with your friends in style with virtual reality racing on board. If cruising is not for you, we can send you to Germany where you can challenge the ring, or whisk you off to Abu Dhabi to take on the world's fastest roller coaster in Ferrari World. Whatever your dream vacation may be, let Dream Vacations handle the details and make that dream into a reality. Visit us at www.travelwithanangel.com.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Overbay never got a chance to show what he had underneath him last round. While he experienced dismay, Unger got all the thrills in an incredible battle between himself and Padovani. Unger came out on top, further extending his points gap over Michael. But if last week's race start seemed chaotic, wait until you see these radicals handle the infamous bumps of Sebring. For some, it might as well be a lottery with the lurking threat of your unexpectedly spinning into the barriers. Is that the sort of thing that'll bring Overbay back into the mix? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 8 of the PRL Radical Racing Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hello and welcome. My name is Nick Schmeg, and my colleague this evening, Joe Peak, had some trouble getting through customs here at the airport at Sebring, but he'll be joining us shortly, don't worry. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sebring's got a lot of twists and turns, a lot of bumps, and honestly, just a lot of everything. That's kind of one of the things that makes Sebring one of the fan favorites in both the sim racing and real-world racing world. Sports car attendances here at Sebring have recently been record-shattering, and that's inspired a lot of sim racers to take all different kinds of cars around here. Tonight, though, it is the Radicals, and of all the cars you could drive here, these low-to-the-ground vehicles are going to feel the bumps more than anything else. The old Hendricks Army Airfield tarmac here is just brutal on equipment, so you better try to stay as careful, as safe, and as consistent as possible. With that being said, though, Sebring is pretty large and daunting too, especially with lots of deceptively fast turns, like Sunset Bend to end a lap and the fast left-hander to start a lap. The circuit here spans 6 kilometers, or about 3.7 miles of flat Central Florida ground, and that lack of elevation change added to the rough surface makes a lot of these 17 turns tricky to get around. If that's not a fast sweeping corner here, it's a tight technical twist in the track, creating for a lot of passing opportunities and setting you up for some straight drafty straightaways. Ask any endurance racing team and they'll tell you that a 12-hour race here is a whole lot more difficult than a 24-hour race at a different track. So with that in mind, it might be a good start to figure out how to do a single lap around Sebring International Raceway. So allow me to send you down to the taxiway of a front stretch to begin the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we're in the GSRC Radical, so let's do a lap around Sebring. Turn 1 will be a test of how planted the car is. The bumps and the speed required on your way in mean spins can catch you out quickly and unexpectedly. Whether you spin to the inside or outside, you're likely to find the barriers. From there, you've only got a short run to 3, but sometimes passes are possible into here. This Radical doesn't like tall curbs, so for the apex on this turn and lots of other places, you'll want to avoid climbing them. Try to square off the exit for 5 because it'll be an important one to get a decent launch. With there being no lifting in big bends, you'll get a lot of speed on your way down to the hairpin. This will be one of the more popular spots for overtakes, but it's also very easy to overshoot this corner, so you'll often see drivers wind up down the escape road or just plain in the grass. Plus, the incredible power of the Radical makes a gentle right foot a big requirement to get off of here smoothly. After that, you're simply straightening out these gentle curves and trying to get lined up for Cunningham. This is another corner where sometimes someone might try to get a pass in. Keep your head up though, because some drivers may take a late defensive line and the two of you will get all tangled up. What's really frightening is the way it blends into Collier, where you're turning and mashing the gas all at once. Then there's the awkward braking at a tower, which makes turning in very, very tricky. Cars trying to swap ends will probably be common. Finally, you get a short rest as you plant your right foot and fly through Bishop. Make sure to hug the left side at the end of this double apexer so that you can get set up for Jean Dembien. It's a medium speed set of S's that flows into one of the most critical turns on the course, Le Mans. You've got to swing wide on your way in and really make sure you can get on the throttle as soon as it's safe. That's because it takes you onto the long Ullman Straight. If someone gets a run on you and you're side by side, you've then got a game of chicken into Sunset Bend. Like the first corner, this turn is bumpy and fast. Everyone's going to be pushing the envelope as to how soon they can reapply the power. Unfortunately, some will probably end their race prematurely because of it. But hopefully you've now finished a lap around Sebring.
There you see a lap at Sebring International Raceway. That lap, though, was during the daytime, and as you can see on screen now, we've got a night race on our hands this evening. That is going to bring a whole new level of intensity to this series. That lap guide, as well as this entire broadcast, once again, is brought to you by Dream Vacations. Dream Vacations provides completely customizable vacation packages from your door to your destination and back. Go to travelwithanangel.com and let us worry about the details. Speaking of details, let's jump into the race details that we have for this evening. This is round 8 of 10. Season winding down. Points definitely ramping up, a lot at stake here. Using the Radical SR8 as we have been all season long. Open setups, but a restricted fuel load, so they are going to have to make one stop during this 45-minute race. And the incident cap of 24. Now, Sebring isn't a track that you normally see too many off tracks, maybe a little more than usual. But since we are at night here, these drivers are definitely going to have to be on their game to try to stay on the tarmac. To stay on the tarmac, they are going to be fighting for points as well. We have a Drivers' Championship to take a look at. And like I said, things really ramping up here late in the going. You have David Unger up there extending that points lead over Michael Overbay, and Eric Luke remaining in third place as well. 18 and 34 points back. Owen McLaughlin and Curlin Andrew, they both bumped themselves up in the standings. McLaughlin going from 5th to 4th, and Curlin Andrew, a great run here for him late in the season, going from 8th to 5th. So for the Banana Split Racing driver, he is really moving up, but he's only 7 points behind McLaughlin too, so potentially a 4th place at stake there as well. Do have a team's championship to take a look at here as well. That's also getting very tight here late in the going. Not so much up at the front, though. Left side drive racing with Harmon and Unger. They continue to pull away from Lone Tranny Racing, but that's where it gets tight. Is back in 3rd place. Crash for Cash remains in 3rd. They've only got a 4-point lead, though, over Alpine Stars at Geodesic Racing. We've been seeing Padavani more and more recently, the part-time schedule racer with Overbay. Then we've got 2 teams tied back in 5th. Taking a look on track now, qualifying commencing, and I can confirm to all of you Joe Peak fans to take a sigh of relief. Customs has let him out here at the airfield, and Joe, welcome to the booth.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that if you bring an orange into Florida that they would have problems with it? I didn't think that would be an issue. Anyway, so we can, as you mentioned, that we do have the qualifying taking place. Very dark qualifying here today, but thankfully we can still at least see the cars, and you can see all of them on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure that you subscribe to that channel when you get the opportunity. All you got to do is go to their webpage, click the big red button that says subscribe, and you'll get all of the Precision Racing League's Radical Racing Series in your feed. Right now at the top of that qualifying is Eric Luke. Padavani, who was looking very fast last week, at least in the qualifying trim, not necessarily in race trim, is sitting in 3rd just behind his teammate. He confirmed to us in the post-race interviews that if need be, he's willing to hand over points to his teammate to help him win the championship. We'll see if it comes to bear, especially considering they're all together right now. In fact, they're ahead of Unger, Nick, so that is going to be critical in this championship fight.
Yeah, and David Unger last week as well, back at Road America, didn't make too many friends in his run for the win, and he mentioned that in his post-race interview. Just ran into cars a couple of times that he definitely didn't mean to do, but not gonna, not rubbing shoulders with the right people in the right way. That's definitely gonna cause some animosity between them and the other drivers.
The good news is with Padavani, both of them seem to just kind of shrug it off and said it's a racing deal. Eric Luke comes across, and he goes another 10th faster, down to a 54.6. So that means it's a half second that Overbay has to make up. Luke is one of the drivers who has won so far this season. There's been a number of them. Unger's taken 3 wins so far. Andy Spicer is going to cross. He goes a little bit faster, but stays in 11th, unfortunately. Looking to see where the other drivers are that are fighting for that pole position. There's a bear coming around in 14th. Slightly small field here today at nighttime in Sebring. Not going to be a faster lap for a bear. This is a relatively long lap, so I'm guessing lap traffic not particularly expected to be an issue.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's a pretty long track here, about 3.7 miles.
I think the real trick is going to be just dealing with those bumps today. I know that in me trying to put that lap together, they certainly caught me out a few times. Curlin Andrews coming across now. And this last lap is his fastest, a 56.8. He goes up P7, just up 1 position ahead of Harmon.
You mentioned all those drivers dealing with the bumps. Another thing you don't really think about is that when that track shifts from daytime to nighttime, you can only see as far as your headlights will allow you to. And a lot of times here at Sebring, you can kind of predict the bumps to an extent with the seams in the track and all the different pallets and plates and patches that have kind of run this tarmac here. But that's going to be interesting for them. Not only the curbs are going to hop up on them in a hurry.
All right, David Unger still sits in 4th behind his championship rival Overbay. What has he got underneath him? It's a 55.6 currently, becomes a 55.3. That's not good enough for pole. And in fact, it doesn't even move him up a position, but it does get him within 1/10 of Padavani at the least. That's Going to take a little bit more for him to get into this. Stevie Ray going to abandon his lap. He had a bad... he really abandons the lap. He had a bad race last week, of course, at Road America. Let's not forget Luke in all of this. He is 34 points behind Unger. We do have 3 rounds left to go, including today, and considering Luke is currently sitting on the pole, I mean, if he could come away with the win, he could get back in the fight for the crown.
It is a possibility. We've seen the unpredictability in this series, especially this season, I feel like. So yeah, don't count Eric Luke out of it just yet. He certainly isn't counting himself out with that speed like that.
On screen, we saw Padavani overtake his teammate on the grid. He put himself onto the front row. Overbay now down to third, going to be starting next to Unger. Here's Scotty Zert coming across. And that lap not going to count for him, unfortunately. So here comes Overbay. As he crosses the line another time, it's a 55.8. That's not going to be fast enough. This is going to be his last chance to try and get a little bit higher, maybe take the pole or second place. Let's go back to Unger, who is coming down the Ullman Straight. One more corner, and then he's going to get this lap and one more if he wants it. This gives you a really good idea of the bumps riding on the nose of the car through Sunset Bend. It's a 55.3 on the board for the Australian, and a 55.4 is not going to top it. He's going to have to work hard, but he's going to pull over, and that's it for Unger. No better than 4th today. Christopher Richards coming off of a decent finish last round. Currently sits 7th in the number 49 car. Not sure if this is going to be a good lap for him. Last to the 56.5. He comes around. Last 2 laps did not count. Does this one? It does, but it's a 57 flat for Christopher. So Padavani crosses the line, a 54.7. He increases the gap to Overbay and Unger, but does not manage to overtake Luke for the pole. The 09 continues to sit on the top spot, even though he's been in the pits for the past 3 minutes or so. Checkered flag comes out here, Nick, and Michael Overbay is coming around. He's behind his teammate, which isn't the worst thing, but having a gap between himself and Unger would probably be more desirable. Does he have anything for Luke or Padavani? It's a 55 flat as his fastest lap, and it is a 55.3. So Nick, no, he's not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, just a couple tenths off there, and he needed to be a lot faster than that. That's about half a second slower still than Jefferson Padavani's time, let alone Eric Luke, another 10th ahead of him and on the pole right now.
Gunderson dips into the pits, not worth finishing his last lap, he seems to think. Eric Harmon is going to be the next one across the line, but he's also abandoning his lap, coming in very slowly into pit lane. I believe Padavani will be our last one to be able to set a lap. He just sneaked across with about 20 seconds left on the clock. So as he comes onto the Ullman Straight, he is 1/10 off of Eric Luke. The 69 car was in contention for the win last week. Had a little bit of a mistake, got bumped in the back, turned around, had to settle for 3rd place. His teammate, unfortunately, wrecked out in the first corner. And it's going to be the last corner that Jefferson Padavani wrecks out of in qualifying. He will not be able to improve. That sets our grid for today. So let's go through our starting order. It is going to be Eric Luke on the pole, as we mentioned. Jefferson Padavani will start next to him. Michael Overbay will be in 3rd. He is giving chase in the points, even though he's qualified ahead of David Unger, who sits next to him on the grid in 4th. Curlin Andrew starts P5, and then Mark File starts 6th. Christopher Richards will be 7th, and Eric Harmon P8. Matthew Gunderson will be 9th, and then rounding out the outside of row 5 will be Tyler Gore.
Right behind them, the 22 and the 11. are going to make up row number 6. Andy Spicer and Stevie Ray once again racing tonight. Going to be rolling off 12th. Daniel Barnett and Phil Gilman going to be behind them 13th and 14th. David A. Baer and Scotty Zirk, the last 2 drivers to set a time. And 17th and 18th behind them are going to go to Ronald McManus and Richard Kaloum back in the 68 car.
All right. The clock on qualifying does look as though it is ticking down, even though the checkered flag has come out. That's just to allow drivers the ability to try and finish their hot laps, and then everyone will be able to grid up here. This is going to be fascinating. I'm trying to think, have we had a night race yet here in the Radical Series? I want to say this is the first.
I believe it is, yeah.
Good thing they've got headlights on them now. Used to not be the case here in iRacing, but they updated the cars so that they can see in the dark. All right, all the cars now heading out towards the grid, finalizing their setups. As was mentioned earlier, it is open in these cars. That will be important to make sure they're compliant over the bumps, make sure they're fast down the straightaways, but also quick in the twisty bits. Could be a compromise on the track today for how you get the car quick around a lap and around a full race distance. So we look at them get the cars out to one of the few spots out on track that is actually lit up here, the pit lane. Very, very bright. And then they plunge into darkness, at least for the vast majority of the lap. I think we're just waiting on Padavani and Kaloum to come out to the grid. Then we will be ready to go here for round 8 of the PRL Radical Racing Series. Actually, if Kaloum is here today. No, he is not. So Richard not going to line up. That means that now that Padavani is out there, that is the last of our field. So the engines start to rev. The lights come up. Green flag is out here at Sebring. Off the line, Luke with a little bit of wheel spin, and that is going to cost him big time. Jefferson Padavani already sneaking by around the outside. It looks like his teammate is not going to be able to do the same. In fact, David Unger has a very good start and is ahead of Mark Feil. Actually, where is Overbay?
It's a terrible start for Michael Overbay. I don't know what happened. He just did not get going. Back to 5th. He dropped to 9th at one point and was able to work his way up in turn 1, though.
And it looks like Feil having a little bit of an issue coming out of turn 5. He loses a couple spots himself. Overbay now up to 4th because of that as they hit the hairpin for the first time. Luke retains the lead ahead of Padavani. Oh, and is that Andrew going off?
It is, and he's trying to rejoin the track, but he's got curbs in the way. He comes out right in front of Matthew Gunderson.
We'll come back to that in a bit. Interesting that Luke managed to retake the lead ahead of Padavani. Padavani already under threat from David Unger, who's actually got a good run coming up to Tower. He sticks his nose to the inside. He's fully passed, gets the car wound up. A clean textbook pass for the Australian, who now gets up to P2. One behind them, we don't need to go to it. Stevie Ray has a spin. He has to wait for the whole field to pass before he can rejoin.
They'll go on to the Ullman straight for the first time, see what kind of slipstream they get. The top 3 still very close together here. David Unger continuing to look forward at Luke, but Padavani a lot closer to Unger than he is to Luke.
Indeed, it looks like Luke managing to stretch himself out to about half a second ahead of Unger, who continues to fight with Padavani. The Brazilian looking for round 2 here. These were the two that were fighting for the lead last time out at Road America. Padavani's got a good run down the front stretch to the inside of turn 1. Not a lot of braking into here. It is very, very bumpy. You can see Padavani started to swing a little bit wide, but he manages to carry the speed well. On board with Unger, he has no answer as they brake for turn 3.
Yeah, Padavani able to take it back for a moment. Unger stuck his nose in there a little too harshly, it looked like. Had to check up majorly, and look who's right behind him. It's Michael Overbay, already fighting for a podium position once again.
Back in the action already, and boy, his teammate Padavani had a hairy moment there coming through 4 and 5, and he's going to have another hairy moment as he outbrakes himself into the hairpin. We saw this last week after a couple laps into the race at Road America. Padovani was all out of sorts. Nick, this is looking like a repeat for Jefferson.
It really is. He just fell off the pace last week at Road America after, like you said, 2 or 3 laps out of nowhere. Got back with it after a while, but it really did open the door for Overbay and Unger, just like it is here.
Maybe he's trying to back up Unger into his teammate. Who knows? They said team orders could be on the cards. We're only 5 minutes into this race, though, so there is still plenty left to play out. They come up to Jean Debienne as each of them sets themselves up for Le Mans, the critical corner onto the Ullman straight. Luke, though he's not pulling a massive gap, is holding station. It's about 0.7 of a second over Padovani. And in fact, all 4 of them seem to have settled out slightly.
You can see there on the Ullman straight that time by on lap 2 that Luke definitely felt threatened by Padovani behind him. He went to that defensive inside, not to try to get any kind of blocking or positioning into the turn, but trying to break that slipstream that Padovani got on him. And look at this, here comes the 69 car.
Looks like nothing doing it there. Let's jump a little bit behind because they got some great action in the mid-pack. Harmon, Richards, and Andrew all duking it out. This is for 6th position. Really the closest among them looks to be Andrew on Richards as they weave their way through 3, 4, and 5. And just as I say that, Richards closing back in on Harmon once more.
Yeah, Richards poked his nose in turn 1. And Curl and Andrew, remember, had that big off on lap 1. Able to rejoin the track, but back in 8th after starting 5th.
Oh, and someone off track. That is Overbay. Oh, and Overbay is stuck trying to get turned around. I think that was Gore who nearly ran into him.
Just looks to be down in the hairpin, and he was following Unger still. Maybe just locked it up. I think he closed in a little too much and dove it in deep, the way it looked.
Yeah, just started to lose it under braking, and then he was stuck in a horrible space. Couldn't find a place to get turned around. Eventually he weaved through. This puts Overbay down in 12th.
Oof.
Well, this is great news for Eric Luke, actually.
Yeah.
He will gain on Unger as he's still ahead of him if he can take this one home. Take a look at this battle behind them between Richards and Harmon that continues. Richards going to poke his nose to the inside as they come up to Sunset Bend. How brave is he, though? They break for the corner. Richards a little bit deeper in there, but is it going to be too deep? Could we have an over-under? Oh, doesn't quite look like it. Instead, Harmon has to check up. And here comes Curlin Andrew, the banana split car, coming up the outside of the pit straight. This is going to be a hard ask for him to get this past on the long way around. But he's up for a challenge. Look at that, Nick.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't afraid to do get too aggressive there. Oh, a little wide there, but that's okay. He's able to rejoin it.
Almost threw it all away, but Curlin Andrew now up to 6th position with that move. Nicely done. Looking from ahead of him, that's Christopher Richards, who's gotten up to the top 5. Not missing anything up front, by the way. Luke has been holding Padovani at bay. There's been no threat there. In fact, they've left Unger a little bit behind. That's the only thing worth noting. So this train continues. They've been swapping back and forth. At the tail of it is actually the closest fight now. That's between Harmon and Gunderson. That's for 7th position.
Gunderson able to close in a little bit on the last couple of turns. We lost a little bit of time to him there at the corner exit.
He's trying to stay with it. It's very cool how with this nighttime you can really see the spits of fire come out of the exhaust of these cars as they backfire and light up the track, not just with their headlights, but a little bit of flame. So Overbay's making easy work of some of the traffic for now. He's just gotten past Barnett, and he's up to 11th.
Richards back to battling with Mark File up for 4th place. He's closed that gap a little bit at the head of this train.
See them now. Richards in the green and red car. File riding in the black and red. They come through turn 1 cleanly, and there's not going to be any opportunity for Richards quite yet, but he's good under braking. Really closes in on the back of File. Let's see if this will open up the door. Coming down to the hairpin. He's looking to get it off the corner. He does not. In fact, it puts him under threat because Curlin Andrews got a fantastic run here, Nick.
He does. He's going to peek here to the left side. That's not going to be the preferred line, but if he's able to get up there with him, he might be able to hold tough. Oh, really tight there through the hairpin.
Andrew is gutsy today.
He's going for it.
Still right behind Christopher. This is not over by any stretch of the imagination. He takes a little bit of a look, threatens down into Cunningham, but nothing doing there. Just giving a psychological move. This is all happening behind File still, who's not pulled any farther away than 6 or 7 tenths from them.
I haven't really seen Andrew use the slipstream much. He usually catches up in the middle of a corner, which makes for some awkward situations to position his car. Let's see if he's able to do anything here, though, as they set themselves up for the Ullman straight. He gets real close to the back of Richards.
I wonder if Andrew set this car up with higher wing than those around him. As you said, certainly makes it tough for him to try and pass since he's only faster in the corners. Christopher Richards very fast down the Ullman straight, and Mark File is not going defensive. He's allowing Richards to take the inside of the corner. We've seen Richards try this before, and he's managing it well on the brakes coming through Sunset Bend. Give P4 now to Christopher Richards after starting this race in 7th place. That's a nice climb.
And a fantastic Sunset Bend for Curlin Andrew as well. He's going to peek his nose to the outside, and File's going to give him that spot as well. So File dropping himself to 6th. Curlin Andrew into the top 5.
File braked really early, it looked like. He was way off of it. Oh, and he might get it right back because for the second time, Curlin Andrew struggling here into 3 and 4. Everybody scatters to try and stay out of his car. Andrew collects it, but instead of anybody getting by him, they've now been all cost time up to Christopher Richards. A little bit of an attack from Eric Harmon on his teammate. Oh, and
Andrew's
now,
off.
Yep, that does it for Andrew. After multiple mistakes, eventually one did him in. He falls to 8th place.
All that, like you said, it really held up File, and it brought back Harmon and Matthew Gunderson into that fight for 6th place, which is now 5th.
Oh, and Harmon off. What happened to Harmon? I looked away at the timing and scoring for 1 second. Let's take a look at the replay.
Ooh, a little snappy loose on throttle, it looks like.
I think maybe he got the curve.
Maybe a little bit. I don't think that helped any.
Yeah, from what it sounded like, I think you called it right the first time. That throttle suddenly peaked, and unfortunately, the tires can only grip so much. Meanwhile, let's jump back to the lead because Padavani's recollected himself. The cars come back to him, and Luke now has all of a couple tenths of a second as they come down the front stretch.
And Padavani really closing in really quickly. Through turn 1, Luke gets a great run. They take a different line, but Padavani going to be able to draft up next to him. Or right behind him, I should say.
Working hard on him as they work their way through 3, 4, and 5. Now heading up to the hairpin. And this is a critical moment for Luke. Just manages to pull away. So unless Padavani really sends it in, not sure that we'll see an overtake.
Padavani being patient for now. He knows he's caught him. And we're only 15 minutes or so into this race, but he's also got to be thinking of if he can or cannot get around him. What does that mean for his pit strategy?
Yeah, and with so few cars, there's bound to be a few more gaps out there. So maybe this is a good race to try and employ that alternate strategy. Remember last time we thought, though, that Unger was going to lose out on the pit stops with a long stop, and instead it was Padovani who managed to, instead it was Unger who managed to gain time on Padovani that started the epic battle that wound up with them making contact. Right on board with the Brazilian, and they're coming onto the Ulman Straight one more time. I think the pit window should be opening up when they come around, so we'll see what he elects to do.
Still very early in that window, but it'll be interesting to see, like you said, what he wants to do with that. If he feels confident enough to get around Eric Luke. I don't know if we'll see any of that.
Looks like not quite confident enough yet, because he stays out. They continue to drop David Unger, which I find fascinating, because Unger's had the measure of the field in a lot of the races so far this season. The number 19, though, is now up to 4.2 seconds, just behind Padovani. Add another half second up to the leader, Luke.
Yeah, ever since that incident with Michael Overbay, David Unger has been falling off the pace, and I don't think they made contact or anything. In fact, Unger was in front of him when that happened, and just coincidentally, that's when, approximately in the race, when Unger began to fall off the pace.
We'll have to ask him about it if he comes in to talk to us. Speaking of Overbay, though, he's actually got himself back up to 9th. He's managed to get by Gore and Spicer, so he's in the top 10. He's unfortunately a whole 26 seconds behind the leader. I don't think a win is necessarily on the cards for Overbay today unless something truly incredible happens. We've seen weirder things before. With the current champion, who managed to win last season. He was up against Padovani, his teammate. But this season, instead, it's been Unger who he's been fighting with most of the way. Back up to the top. Padovani just within 0.3 of a second. And look at that weaving now, Nick. Eric Luke clearly trying to break the draft, so he's not feeling too safe.
Trying to manipulate and snap that air flowing off the back of his car that his car is punching a big hole in. It is a vacuum back to Padovani to reel him in to the back of Luke and try to get him slingshot up side by side with him down to turn 1. Not enough air there to do that.
Padovani is really applying pressure at this point. Multiple times we've seen him get as close as 0.2 of a second. And if there's one thing that Luke has not had on his side so far this season and seasons past, it's been consistency. It's part of what cost him so long until he got his first win. Hopefully he can withstand the pressure and keep the car pointed forward and on the track here today. He's got 28 more minutes to do so, with that number 69 breathing down his neck.
Little bunch up back in 4th place once again. Mark Feil has caught Christopher Richards, and not too far behind them, Matthew Gunderson in 6th place, having a nice climb up through the field today.
Yeah, Gunderson as well gained about 3 positions from the grid, started in 9th. Could be 2 more spots on the cards, depending on what happens between Feil and Richards. They work their way through Collier, up to Tower. I'm a little bit surprised, though. Maybe everybody's been on their guard, Nick. I thought that we'd have a lot of spins out here today, and it's been relatively calm, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we've had a lot of grip here tonight, of course, with it being the nighttime here. A little past 10:30 virtual standard time. Might have our first pitters, but I think that might be due to damage as well. Stevie Ray is just rolling out of his box.
From what I know of Stevie Ray and the Weekend Warriors, he almost always takes an early stop. So I think this is just Stevie Ray being Stevie Ray. He's back out and running, and he is the last car on track. fact, he's about to get lapped by the leaders. So
Wow.
this could affect this battle.
Yeah, this might help Padavani perfectly if Luke's not able to maneuver around him nicely. Unfortunately, though, for Jefferson Padavani, another thing we know about Stevie Ray is he's got quite a lot of on-track etiquette. And there you see there.
Absolutely. Nicely done by the Texan. Timed it perfectly. So that battle will stay at about half a second. Unger continues to drop. It is now 7 seconds between himself and Padavani. The good news for David is that podium looks pretty solid because he's got 14 seconds back to Richards. Our top three have been running a torrid pace.
And you mentioned David Unger there. He is really far in front of Christopher Richards, Mark Feil, and Gunderson, still battling for fourth as well. Nothing changed there.
That's still a three-way battle for fourth place, essentially, between Richards, Feil, and Gunderson. Why don't we glance back at a couple drivers we haven't gotten much on screen. That's Hebert and Guillaumin. They're fighting for 13th spot. That's Hebert in the red, black, and yellow car. Guillaumin in the green and white machine following him. Making their way out of turn 5 through Big Bend. Nothing for him. Number 96 has to continue to chase. And, Padavani is going to take an alternate strategy. Litter Pants is going to come on in early, and nobody is following him.
Oh boy. That's going to be interesting to see whether this triggers something or not. Like you said, no one follows him this time, and it's a long lap around here to get back out on track. And we'll also have to see if Jefferson Padavani comes out in the middle of traffic. We saw that with Stevie Ray's pit stop. Didn't really expect that too much.
A bit of a reverse version of traffic, I suppose. Usually you get caught amongst cars that haven't pitted. They're on the same lap as you. Padavani is out, and he's going to be a little bit behind traffic because I think Gore is going to get by him. Otherwise, he's mostly in clear track. So interesting that Overbay, even though he's a ways behind, has employed almost the same strategy. Pits on the same lap.
Might have been a team decision earlier before the race as well to pit about halfway through.
Could be. That's a good point. It is almost exactly halfway here at this point. 24 minutes left to go. The other question is, will Luke respond? Is he going to... I mean, there's no way he can't notice that there's a lack of headlights behind him at this point. Even without a pit strategist on the box for him, he's got to know. So what does the 09 do? He's coming down the Ullman straight. He's got 10 seconds back to Unger. He's not going to get jumped by Unger, most likely, unless he really botches the pit stop. And he's going to stay out.
Wondering about David Unger as well. He's all by himself. He's about 14, 15 seconds ahead of Richards, but he's also going to choose to stay out. So I think this is going to be a pretty early stop here for the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing team.
Oh, and good news for Jefferson Padavani. If we go to him right now, Gore just pulled off to the side, and I don't think it's a defensive move because he pulled over very, very early. He lifts. Gore could have fought him. That was not blue flags or anything. Padavani just rocked up behind him. Gore was aware of the strategy situation, decided it wasn't worth fighting, and in fact, Gore is going to pit now as Padavani now has, let's see, it looks like actually a completely clear track because everybody ahead of him just pit.
Wow. That's definitely going to help him.
Well, Jefferson held up his cane and the seas parted, and Moses walked on through the Red Sea. So with a completely clear track in front of him, Jefferson Padavani can now put his pedal down. Mark Feil returns from his pit stop. And actually, wow, File and Gunderson come out just ahead of Michael Overbay, and this is for position. Overbay is in a hurry. Remember, he's trying to recover from his spin in the first 5 minutes of this race. We now ride on board with Overbay chasing down Gunderson.
He slips to the inside there. He put a ton of pressure on the 33 car. He's gonna clear him. Think he's gonna get by him, and now he's gonna set his sights on Mark File in front of him, already closing that gap about in half just in one turn.
This will be a fantastic job if Overbay can get back to the top 5, because currently he's in 8th after that overtake. If he gets File, that'll put him 7th, and he still has drivers who need to pit ahead of him.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I can report as well, Eric Luke and David Unger have both stayed out this lap. Christopher Richards and Curlin Andrew coming through Sunset Bend right now.
Oh, and who is that
Looks
off? Someone on screen just went off. That might have been File. Yeah, that was File giving another spot up to Overbay.
Overbay got it done the easy way.
Just clean out braked himself. Overbay said thank you. That's one more spot down. Harmon pits in the meantime. So there's another one that Overbay should be able to get by, I believe. Or if not, it'll be awful close. Harmon's still stationary. Overbay's now on the front stretch. He's got speed up. Harmon now comes out of his stall. And Overbay is by. That now moves Overbay to 6th position. And the next car up is his teammate. Granted, I believe it's looking at about 25 seconds up the road.
Yeah, the early pitter along with Overbay, Jefferson Padavani, his teammate. And like you said, I do believe team orders would come into play here, but he's got a 25-second gap there, like you said.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
That's some harsh team orders.
Yeah, it'd be a lot to give up. You might have to get a little bit closer before they make that happen. So Eric Luke comes around Sunset Bend with less than 20 minutes to go, but he's still not coming in. He's going to run this thing dry.
David Unger's been losing time to him. He is also going to stay out.
So everybody going for the long strategy up at the top of the field. Not responding. Richard still has Curlin Andrew. This is a fight for position, by the way. Now 3rd, since a few of these cars ahead of them have pitted as Richards goes way deep into Sunset Bend. He tries to accelerate off the corner, and it's going to be a drag race down the front stretch. But I think Richards, with a car fully ahead, should be safe indeed. He pulls back to the racing line as Curlin Andrew is going to have to go for it somewhere else. This is one of the closest battles we have on track happening right now. It's been a fascinating race so far. And despite it being at nighttime and being one of the toughest tracks to run in high downforce cars, we've only lost Richard Colomb and Stevie Ray. Everybody else is running. Granted, McManus and Zerk multiple laps down, having to get repairs, but they have returned.
Eric Luke, I was just about to mention, running into a little bit of traffic as he heads onto the Ullman Straight. That's Scotty Zerk in front of him. Looks like he's going to get around him no problem, but it definitely held him up at least a couple of tenths of a second.
And this could be critical, because remember, we were wondering about Padavani having to avoid traffic, which he only had to overtake, I think, one car.
David Hebert not too far in front of Eric Luke as well. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw the 09 dive it in.
No.
Well, air traffic control here has told him to remain in his holding pattern.
Interesting stuff. I'm with you. I thought that Luke was absolutely going to make the call so that he doesn't lose time. Unger seems to be on the ball. This is a battle that continues for two drivers yet to pit, Richards and Andrew. either of them going to come in? Nope, not quite yet.
I think they're having too much fun battling out here to come in so far at this point in the race. Seeing Unger here.
Unger's still stationary. They're about 15-second stops. Everybody's been pretty close on pit time so far. Not seeing any wild variations until now because Unger's with a 17-second stop. Interesting.
Wow. And he should, theoretically need less fuel as well, so something went wrong on that stop for the team.
So, well, the less fuel because of pitting late is a long time myth that we've always had to bring up here on GSRC. So they all start with the ability to have the same amount of fuel. So you can't need less fuel unless you're better on the throttle, really. Going later just means that you move back the time in which you take the same amount of fuel, essentially. It's one of those things that some of our fans are very, very ardent about. We always have to explain because it's one of those things that you think is logic seems to dictate, yeah, shorter distance, less fuel, but it's just simply not the case, unfortunately. But this battle is certainly going to suck up some fuel because Richards is holding off a very fierce Curlin Andrew.
I don't know if I'd be talking all that fuel jargon to Curlin Andrew. I don't know if that's something he wants to hear right now.
Luke is in. Luke has pitted finally. This is the one we've been waiting for because we want to know. Padavani! Something happened to Padavani. He is no longer on track. I'm trying to see when it happened. Padavani was the one we thought could overtake Luke, but that is not to be. This happened a long, long time ago. He's got severe damage. And in fact, he had 2 incidents, it looked like.
Looks like, man, he's all by himself.
He's in Collier here at this point. He had a little curb, but that didn't upset him. Maybe it was Tower.
His rear wing was all messed up as well.
Oh, there it is. Oh, it was Tower. To the inside, let's watch. No? Just the bumps.
Yeah, that's where he smacks the left side wall, and later on in the same lap, he's going to end up spinning off track because of that lack of downforce.
What a twist on that one.
Wow.
So Eric Luke now has a handy 12-second lead over the new second-place driver, David Unger. I don't think Overbay is going to be able to take advantage of team orders, but the good news for Overbay is he's back on the podium. The bad news for Overbay is Unger is still ahead of him.
Yeah, great recovery for him, but not when you take a look at the points.
As I said before, this is looking the best for Eric Luke, though he is a dark horse for this championship, this will be his second win if he brings this one home. I'd say don't count him out. Meanwhile, on screen, this is Richards in 4th in the closest battle on track with Mark File chasing him. And did something happen to Andrew? I think.
Well, he went off again in the hairpin, it looks like.
Oh.
We've seen him a couple times just overshoot that misses braking point. So no damage, cosmetically at least, to the 12 car, but lost a lot of ground. Now he's holding off Gunderson.
Getting awful close to the back of him. As let's stay on this battle because Richards very much under threat from File, although Richards deep on the brakes into Sunset Bend. Riding on board with File. Man, he was within less than a car length coming down the Ullman Straight, and then he lost it all through that final right-hander.
Great run for Christopher Richards today. I haven't talked about him much this season, but starting up in 7th and right now running 4th. Definitely a fantastic run for the 49 car.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if anybody is a bigger mover so far, and it doesn't look like it. I mean, I guess you could count Overbay coming back from what was 12th place back to a podium once again. In fact, why don't we run down your order, because everybody has taken their stops. So let's give you the update on the stories of the race. Eric Luke, who put it on pole, had a horrible run off the line, but fended off Padavani and is continuing to run in first place. His greatest threat was Padavani, but Padavani wrecked out, unfortunately. David Unger looked like he's been struggling for pace today. He did gain a little bit of time since the pit stop. It is now 10 seconds between himself and Luke, but it has been as high as 12 seconds at times. Michael Overbay spun very early in the hairpin. He had to wait for many cars to go by. That cost him tons of time. He is still 27 seconds behind the leader, but he's back to the podium, minimizing the damage today. Christopher Richards runs in fourth in the closest battle on track, which we were looking at a bit ago. As we mentioned, Richards, having climbed from P7, has gotten up to fourth. He could have that taken away, because back there, that is Mark File behind him in the 777. File as well has moved up from 6th now to 5th, seeing if he can do any more. What's the next 5 look like, Nick?
Yeah, File was just battling a couple laps ago with Curlin Andrew, and we mentioned him having a big off in the hairpin for had to have been the second or third time. We have a spinner somewhere. That is Matthew Gunderson running back in 7th.
That was Sunset Bend, one of the areas we thought would be a problem. He was ahead of Eric Harmon, and you could see
this is all like bumps.
Yeah. Car not connecting with the ground, and eventually that makes it hard to handle. That sends him down to 8th position.
That puts Gunderson back in 8th. Like you said, he's right behind Eric Harmon and right in front of Tyler Gore and Andy Spicer, who round out the top 10.
That means we're down to a single close battle between Richards and File. If any of the others get close, we'll jump to them. I think Andrew and Harmon, the only other two that seem to be within striking distance of one another. At this point, the top 3 are just cruising to make sure they ensure the spots that they have are safe. Minutes to go here in round 8. After this is all said and done, there will be only 2 races left in the season. Overbay, before this is done, is trailing Unger by 18 points. That will extend, but Luke, who's trailing by 34, will gain a couple. And I spoke too soon. Looks like Hebert and Guillaume bringing it back together. This is for 12th position.
Yeah, we watched these two early in the race, back when they were on the lead lap before pit cycles happened. Now back a lap down, 12th and 13th. Hebert continues to lead Phil Guillaume.
They've got some lap traffic coming up behind them, so that could interrupt this. It's Richards and File, so it's actually 2 storms coming together. Guillaume is going to let them by very, very politely. And so that's going to rob him of a battle with Hebert, unless Hebert does the same.
Mark File looks to be, or Christopher Richards, I'm sorry, looks to be the first one coming through here to get around David Hebert through the hairpin. Can't catch him there.
Hebert's
all
not
that happening while Richards is holding off File.
Yeah, I was going to say Hebert is not as interested in being that polite with lappers. So he's going to hold his line. Richards now really closes in, and this is where it starts to affect Richards. He gets into the wake of the number 16. David's not in a good spot to try and pull over, unfortunately, as they work their way through Tower. Maybe out of here. He's going to try and pull it over. All 3 of them get through, but certainly check them up together.
Yeah, it brought them all together for sure. Oh, a little close behind him as well. That was Eric Harmon getting through.
Yeah, certainly had a heck of a time trying to make that work. Curlin Andrews really happy about that, though, because he is getting all over the back of Christopher Richards and Mark Feil, right on board with him.
Yeah, Andrew, one of those guys who had fallen off a second or two, but look at this big run in front of him from Mark Feil. Not able to dive it in deep. He's actually having to get on the brakes a little sooner because of that. He hits that bump really sporadically. Andrew jumps to the outside. They all foul in line once again, though, on the front stretch.
There's no point for these drivers to try and work together at this point because they are 9 seconds behind Overbay on the podium. At this point, it's a battle for the best of the rest, and I think all three of them look pretty hungry right now. Look at Andrew get really aggressive with Feil. Mark goes defensive down into turn 3 and keeps him at bay.
They are hungry indeed.
A mistake from Richards.
That's Christopher Richards going wide. That's going to allow Feil to get around on the outside, though. Behind him, Andrews having to hold off Eric Harmon.
When did Harmon get back in this? I thought he fell behind with the lap traffic, but no. So the only change in spots for that is Feil getting up to 4th ahead of Richards. They've got another car to lap coming up. It's Scotty Zerk next. Oh, and Overbay. He's losing gobs of time.
Oh, he looped
This is the
it.
second spin he's had. You're right.
Was this the same spot?
No, it was in Cunningham, it looks like. Yeah. So a little bit down the road from his first one. The good news is he didn't lose his spot, but he's now only 3.5 seconds ahead of Feil. He has another one of those. He will be off the podium.
Yeah, everyone behind him. This battle with Mark Feil, Christopher Richards, they are all fighting for that final podium spot if Overbay hands that over.
Oh, and in the background you saw that was Richards going a little bit wide. That's another spot that he loses. Curlin Andrew now up to 5th. This is certainly getting frantic in the battle for the mid-pack. So can Feil start to run down Michael Overbay in all this? Does Overbay have to back off a bit to save the car?
He'd certainly love to. Teammates with Eric Luke, going to be a great day for the Fraley's Auto Body team if they can do it.
So with laps being at about minute 56, minute 57 for our drivers, what are we looking for on laps to the left? Eric Luke going to be able to get to the line with 2 to go. Right on board with Curlin, still sitting 4th place. We'd like to look ahead. Instead, he's going on the defensive with Richards trying to get that spot back. Richards also has Harmon. There you can see the second set of headlights weaving back and forth behind him. Oh, what a mistake. Another mistake from Andrew. Very prone to them today.
Goes wide again.
Gathers it back together. Yeah.
And now he's on all sorts of a different racing line, but he's going to be able to hold down that spot for 5th.
Oh, but
Harmon behind him had some issues there on corner exit.
Yeah, that looked like some wheel spin out of the 617. So he drops back to a whole second behind Richards.
They're pushing harder and harder. They got to be careful of getting back on that acceleration too rapidly. That's really what Richards wants to see. He can turn his mirrors off and just look forward to Andrew.
Now, let's stick with this, but it's worth noting that Unger has chopped off another 2 seconds to Luke. So it's a little bit too little too late, I think, for the Australian, but interesting that he is running him down.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Luke looks down at the box and sees that he has a, what was it, over 10-second gap to second. With only 2 laps left, he just wants to manage that and keep it safe, I think.
That would have been my guess. Especially, as I mentioned earlier, Luke having thrown away a few wins over the last few seasons. Behind this, 8th place has been getting awful close. This is two teammates, Gunderson and Gore. Oh, and Richards. Oh, Richards was off in turn 5. A mistake all on his own. It cost him, and I don't think he hit the wall.
No, it just cost him time and ground, it looks like. That's a tough way to end a fantastic run for him today.
Really a shame. He gets bumped down to 7th. Harmon now up to 6th because of that. We take a look at Richards returning to the track. White flag is coming out for the 09 of Eric Luke. It's 7.5 seconds now back to David Unger. In fact, Unger might even be able to see him on some of the long straights. David has put on quite a show this season. The number 19 came in as a rookie. I mean, naturally still a rookie, but sometimes it's easy to forget that. The way he's been racing. This is Curlin Andrew giving chase on file. Losing, well, no, they're not losing touch with Overbay. They're actually only 2.3 seconds behind. That was over 3 before.
Andrews made a lot of daring moves today. He is certainly not out of this battle for 4th.
He's made a lot of daring moves, but he's made a lot of mistakes too.
True.
So, I don't know. That banana split car is kind of a 50-50 for me on whether or not he could manage to get himself up to 4th in the end. You could call it a split decision.
Also does show you how fast he is, though. After making so many mistakes, that would rule a lot of drivers out, but he's still in a battle for 4th. He's been able to regain his composure several times tonight.
Board with him. Jump back to the leader when he gets close to the finish line. As I mentioned, it is the white flag lap now. Peering into the darkness, being 11 p.m. virtual standard time. It is unfortunately running out of time for many of our drivers to do better here at Sebring, but not for Eric Luke. It is 6.3 seconds. He really doesn't have to hustle the car from here because it's the final corner coming through Sunset Bend. Nice and smooth over the bumps. It took him a long time for his first one, but not as long for his second. Eric Luke takes the victory here at Sebring. Unger follows him home just shy of 6 seconds across the line for second place. And Overbay, who continues to be hounded. Oh, what a spin! Mark File gets turned around. Curlin Andrew is going to get by. So a last lap problem for Mark File costs him a potential top 5.
Another heartbreaking finish here. Harmon gets by as well. That's going to move him up to 5th. Curlin Andrew coming onto the front stretch now. He'll happily take a hard-fought 4th place.
Absolutely. And Eric Harmon will get P6. File recovers to 7th. Poor Christopher Richards as well. He comes back in 7th place, just ahead of the battling teammates of Tyler Gore and Matthew Gunderson. Last car on the lead lap is going to be Andy Spicer. So, as we let him work his way to the line, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. If you stick around, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC.
Hello from Dream Vacations. We look forward to helping you plan a cruise vacation where you can race your friends on the top deck while cruising the oceans, where you can compete with your friends in style with virtual reality racing on board. If cruising is not for you, we can send you to Germany, where you can challenge the ring, or whisk you off to Abu Dhabi to take on the world's fastest roller coaster in Ferrari World. Whatever your dream vacation may be, let Dream Vacations handle the details and make that dream into a reality. Visit us at www.travelwithanangel.com.
Welcome back to Sebring International Raceway. It was a nighttime race here for the Radical Series, and boy, it gave us some entertainment, but it wasn't as chaotic as we thought it would be. Certainly wasn't chaotic for Eric Luke, other than a little bit of a scare at the start when he got some wheel spin off the line. He retook the lead and didn't look back from there. He wins his second race in this series. David Unger tried to follow him home. Not sure how disappointed Unger will be. We'll have to ask him post-race here, see what he thinks, because he gets a second place over his main rival in the points, Michael Overbay, who still finishes in third despite 2 spins today. He's got some work to do, the number 1 car. Curlin Andrew finishes 4th, and Eric Harmon takes the top 5. It's Mark Feil who falls out of the top 5 on the final lap with just about a corner to go. He takes 6th. Christopher Richards finishes 7th, and then it's Tyler Gore in 8th. Matthew Gunderson finishes exactly where he started, 9th place, and then the top 10 is rounded out by Andy Spicer.
Daniel Barnett, driver of the number 66 car, the driver out of New York, is going to wind up the first car a lap down in 11th. And your underrated battling of the night, I think, goes to this battle back for 12th place. David Hebert and Phil Guillaumin, fantastic run. They were side by side all the way to the finish. They finished right in front of Scotty Zerk. Right behind Zerk is where you will find Jefferson Padovani. Not the result he would like tonight, just a couple of mistakes, and he finds himself 9 laps down in 15th. Stevie Ray, another night that does not go his way. He's going to finish 16th with McManus in 17th, 14 laps down. Richard Kalum going to be a did not start to round out the 18-car field.
We've got our winner ready here to talk to us. Eric Luke takes win number 2, this time at Sebring and at night. And before I get towards later in the race, let's start at the very beginning, Eric. You put it on pole, but off the line, it looked like you had a horrible start. Was it wheel spin? What happened?
Yeah, it was me getting a little too greedy on the throttle. And just the mindset was, I was like, oh, it's already pinned, so let's just see how far it'll go. And my mindset behind it really was that if I got behind somebody, I was okay with that, at least for the first part of the race, because I knew I had pace. I was leading practice, put it on pole without a draft. It was I knew I had the pace here, so I wasn't too concerned with somebody being in front of me. But when I actually got the whole shot and put people behind me, that's when I started to get worried, because the draft makes a huge deal here, and it can keep people that don't normally have pace. So I was doing everything I could to break free from Jefferson.
Well, that brings me to my second question, actually, and maybe explains it. Jefferson came in kind of early, but then you stayed out, even when you came up to some lap traffic. Did you felt that confident that you could drop him if you were running on your own?
On my own, I knew I could pretty much do a mid 55, just as a standard race pace. I knew if it really push came to shove, I could do 3, 4, maybe 5 laps in a row in the high 54s or low 55s. So I think he pitted because he was overheating his tires, staying with me, especially on the draft. So I think it was kind of a strategy on his part to try to jump me out of the pits, but he had a spin earlier, or after that, so I was pretty much in the clear.
And then you said you felt really good about your pace today. So towards the end, we actually saw Unger closing in on you. Was that simply you managing the gap and keeping the car whole with all the bumps here to make sure you take the victory?
That is absolutely correct. I didn't want a repeat of Panorama or Spa. So once I came out of the pits, I saw that I had an 11-second gap back to Unger. And at that point in time, I decided that if it got to 10 seconds or less, given 8 or 9 minutes left to go in the race, that I would pick it up the pace for a couple laps, and then I would drop it back down. And when I saw we had 4 or 5 laps to go, I basically just put it in the mid 57s just to bring her home.
Well, nicely done. You did bring her home on the top spot with your second victory. Hope to see you next week at Phillip Island.
Same here. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good night.
That was Eric Luke, our winner. Nick is going to talk to the second place driver, David Unger, about his race.
Absolutely. David Unger going for his 4th win tonight, came up just a little bit shy, but David, talk about that race, starting back in 4th and finding yourself at the end there in 2nd.
Well, I got really lucky. Early on, I managed to get past Michael Overbay, and I was trying to do that. That was my mission for tonight. And then I got very lucky that unfortunately Jefferson must have lost it somewhere. I didn't see that happen. And once that did happen, it was just a matter of bringing it home.
Yeah, absolutely. We and you mentioned getting around Michael Overbay. You've said a couple times before that your mindset is just to go out one race at a time, and at the end of the season you'll check the points again. Well, we're towards the end of the season with Phillip Island next week. What's the mindset going into there with championship on the mind?
Well, I'm on the mission. I call it my triple O mission, and that is Operation Overtake Overbay. So, I figure if I can stay in front of him, and it'd be a bonus if I can stay in front of Eric as well, because he's had a couple of good wins, and I've got to watch out for him as well. But I've got to really concentrate hard now and just make sure that I get good results.
Oh, I like that. That's a nice got a ring to it. I think we're gonna have to bring that up next time on the broadcast at Phillip Island. We saw this race tonight played out in the dark. Did you have any difficulty there with any of the variables that just racing at night threw to you this race?
Well, this particular track, I've driven this many times. Well, no, tonight in the dark, and it's pretty scary. The one thing I will say for the track, though, is it's well marked. You can see where the corners are and all that sort of business. So the times reflected that. I thought that the times were very, very similar to day times. So it is a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. And one quick question I do want to ask going into Phillip Island next week, do you have much of a home court advantage there, or is that still pretty far away from where you are?
Well, it used to be about an hour and a half from where I live, but I moved away, and so now it's about 5.5 hours to 6. So it is a long way away, but I still do class it as a home track.
All right, we'll have to give you a home field advantage there. We'll be interested to see what you can do, and the Triple O mission is going to be very interesting to follow as well. So good luck there, and congratulations tonight on your second place finish.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, guys.
The last driver we're going to talk to is the one that Unger has been trying to overtake. That is Overbay. And Michael, third place today. I mean, feelings on that? You had 2 mistakes that we caught out there, and obviously your main rival has gained a little bit of ground on you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I spun, and I know he hit the brake just a little bit more than I was expecting in that corner, and I just kind of spun it, and then I was pushing after that. And then finally, whenever I got into a little space, I just kind of settled down and just said, bring it home.
And you did manage to get back up to the podium, which did impress me, if I'm honest. At one point, you were all the way down to 12th, and we noticed that you pitted at the same time as your teammate Padavani. Are those pit stops pre-planned, or was that just coincidence?
That was just coincidence because I only pitted because I was catching a pack of 3 guys and I was going to lose a lot of time and I wanted to jump them on the pit. So that's when I pitted. And I have no clue why Jefferson pitted then.
That's really funny then, because we thought for sure that maybe you guys had some sort of team plan going on there. Still, it jumped you up to 3rd in the end, and you've got 2 rounds left. You've lost little points to Unger. What do you do from here? How do you tackle those last 2 rounds?
I think the only thing I can do is just go out and just try to win them, and then hope. I don't hope for anybody to have a bad race, but we'll get faster and beat them then, because I don't want anybody to wreck out.
Yeah, I guess that's the best that you can hope for as a driver, and the only thing you can control is your own race. But again, congratulations on a podium, and hopefully we will see you in those last 2 rounds.
Thank you, and congratulations, Derek, on the win, and David on 2nd place, and you guys are doing a great job with your broadcast.
Well, thank you. That was Michael Overbay, 3rd place today. We're going to close up here. Before we go, though, we, of course, want to thank a few people. A big thank you goes to Dream Vacations for sponsoring this season. You can find them at travelwithanangel.com if you want to check them out and see what they can do for you. Also, a big thank you goes to iRacing for putting us on IESN. When you get the opportunity, go over to their YouTube page and click subscribe. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race, we mentioned it a little bit ago, Phillip Island coming next. That'll be full of plenty of excitement of its own. That'll be Thursday, May 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.